What if your greatest struggle isn't a barrier blocking your path, but actually a doorway to something profound within you? That moment when you feel most lost might be the exact point where your true journey begins. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how the ancient wisdom of archetypal symbols reveals that our challenges aren't random obstacles. They're meaningful signposts on our personal hero's journey. By understanding this hidden pattern that's been speaking to humans for thousands of years, you'll never look at your difficulties the same way again. What if I told you that your life follows an ancient pattern that's been guiding humans for thousands of years? A pattern so fundamental that it appears in the stories of every civilization that has ever existed on this planet. This isn't just a theory or a philosophical idea. It's a discovery that fundamentally changes how you understand yourself and the world around you. Across all cultures and throughout time, the same symbolic journey appears over and over again in myths, stories, dreams, and religious traditions. From the Epic of Gilgamesh, carved into Mesopotamian clay tablets over 4,000 years ago, to the latest superhero blockbuster playing in theaters today, we see the same archetypal characters, the same transformative struggles, the same symbolic deaths and rebirths. This pattern isn't just similar, it's strikingly identical in its core elements. Yet most of us move through our lives completely unaware of this pattern. We experience its effects every day. We're shaped by its invisible forces, but we don't recognize it. Like fish unaware of the water they swim in. We interpret our struggles as random hardships, our transformative moments as lucky breaks, and our recurring challenges as unfortunate coincidences. We miss the deeper meaning because we haven't been taught to see it. Look at the ancient cave paintings in Lascaux, France, dating back 17,000 years. They depict humans encountering powerful animal spirits during what anthropologists believe were initiation rituals. Now compare that to modern films like The Lion King, Star Wars, or The Matrix. The specific settings and characters change, but the underlying symbolic journey remains remarkably consistent. The call to adventure, the meeting with mentors, the confrontation with shadow forces, and the return with newfound wisdom. It was Carl Jung who first recognized that these symbolic patterns weren't arbitrary. Through his work with patients' dreams and his study of world mythologies, Jung discovered that these archetypal symbols arise from what he called the collective unconscious, a deeper layer of the psyche that we all share regardless of our culture or time period. These aren't learned symbols. They're inherent to the human experience itself. Jung realized these archetypes function as a kind of psychological DNA, guiding our development as individuals, just as our biological DNA guides our physical development. These symbols speak a language that's older than words. Long before humans developed written language, we communicated through imagery and metaphor. This symbolic language isn't something you need to study or learn. Your psyche already understands it intuitively. It speaks to you through your dreams, through the stories that inexplicably move you, and through the inexplicable sense of recognition you feel when encountering certain symbols or scenarios. When you begin to recognize this pattern in your own life, something remarkable happens. Events that once seemed random or meaningless suddenly reveal themselves as meaningful chapters in a larger story. That career setback becomes a necessary redirection. That painful relationship ending becomes an essential letting go before something new can enter. That period of isolation becomes a crucial time of inner growth and preparation. Your life stops feeling like a series of disconnected incidents and starts revealing itself as a coherent journey with purpose and direction. This perspective transforms how you view your current struggles. What if the challenges you're facing right now aren't random obstacles, but perfectly timed tests designed to develop specific qualities you'll need for the next phase of your journey? What if the resistance you're encountering is actually a sign that you're approaching an important threshold? What if your feelings of being lost are actually the necessary disorientation that precedes a new beginning? Why do these same archetypal challenges appear across all cultures and times? The answer lies in understanding that these patterns aren't just interesting coincidences. They're hardwired into our collective unconscious as guides for psychological development. Just as your body knows how to heal a physical wound without conscious instruction, your psyche knows the stages needed for psychological growth and integration. These symbolic patterns serve as templates for the universal human experience of developing consciousness, integrating the shadow, and becoming a more complete version of yourself. Joseph Henderson, a colleague of Jung, observed that these symbolic patterns found in mythology correspond directly to psychological development processes. He noted that across cultures, initiation rituals and hero myths follow remarkably similar structures precisely because they're reflecting the universal stages of psychological maturation. The symbolic death and rebirth that appears in countless myths isn't just a storytelling device. It represents the necessary psychological process of letting go of an old identity before a new, more integrated one can emerge. Henderson documented how these patterns appear not just in ancient contexts, but in the dreams and psychological journeys of modern individuals. The archetypal challenges we face aren't arbitrary. They're specific to the developmental thresholds we're crossing. They're like psychological signposts, marking important transitions in our growth. This understanding doesn't just provide an interesting lens for analyzing stories, it offers a practical framework for navigating your own life challenges. When you recognize what threshold you're standing at, you gain insight into what's being asked of you, what you need to let go of, and what new capacities you're being called to develop. Recognizing your threshold is only half the equation. What few understand is that every meaningful threshold comes with a guardian. Think about the last time you faced something that terrified you, something that made you want to run in the opposite direction. That paralyzing fear or overwhelming doubt wasn't random. It was serving a specific purpose in your psychological journey, standing watch at the doorway of your transformation. These guardians aren't just metaphorical figures. They're powerful psychological forces that appear at crucial junctures in your life. They manifest in various forms. That voice of self-doubt when you're about to take a risk, the anxiety that floods your body before a major presentation, or the inexplicable resistance you feel when contemplating a necessary change. What's fascinating is that these guardians follow a universal pattern, appearing in similar forms across different cultures and throughout human history. Have you ever noticed how your fear and resistance intensify precisely when you're on the verge of your most significant breakthroughs? This isn't coincidental. As the research shows, resistance and fear often intensify just before major personal breakthroughs, acting as a crucial test of commitment and readiness for the changes ahead. This intensification signals that you're approaching something genuinely important, a threshold between your current self and who you're capable of becoming. Consider Maria, who experienced paralyzing anxiety every time she attempted to finish her novel. The closer she got to completion, the more intense her inner critic became. What she initially interpreted as evidence of her inadequacy was actually her guardian at work, testing her commitment before allowing her to cross into new creative territory. When she recognized this pattern and pushed through despite the resistance, she not only finished her book, but discovered a confidence that transformed other areas of her life. Or take Michael, who found himself sabotaging job interviews for positions that would advance his career. His guardian appeared as an overwhelming fear of success, not failure. Each time he approached the threshold of greater responsibility and visibility, his guardian intensified its presence, creating so much internal chaos that he would unconsciously underperform. The guardian was testing if he was truly ready for the evolution that awaited him. These guardians are not malevolent forces trying to block your path. They serve an essential purpose. As the research explains, they're tests of our readiness and commitment, standing between us and new levels of awareness and personal growth. They ensure you don't cross important thresholds prematurely or without the necessary preparation. They're like the immune system of your psyche, creating resistance against changes that might destabilize your current identity before you're ready to integrate a new one. This understanding transforms how you might view those moments when you feel stuck or blocked. That promotion you keep getting passed over for, the relationship pattern that repeats despite your best efforts, or the personal project you can't seem to complete. These situations often occur at the boundary between your familiar self and the expanded identity that awaits. Your psyche creates guardians proportional to the significance of the transition. What's particularly revealing is that the intensity of the guardian, the challenge, or the obstacle encountered is often directly proportional to the potential for growth and transformation on the other side. In other words, the bigger the guardian, the more significant the threshold it protects. Those seemingly insurmountable challenges in your life might actually be signals pointing toward your most important opportunities for growth. Just as the hero in ancient myths had to defeat the dragon guarding the treasure, you must confront these guardians to access new dimensions of your potential. But confrontation doesn't always mean fighting. Sometimes it means understanding, integrating, or simply staying present with the discomfort until the guardian reveals its deeper message. The research highlights an important nuance. In many hero myths, the hero's initial vulnerabilities are counterbalanced by the presence of strong, tutelary figures or guardians. These figures provide the hero with the support and guidance needed to overcome seemingly impossible tasks. This reminds us that we aren't meant to face our guardians alone. These supportive forces might appear as mentors, friends, therapists, or even as internal resources we develop through practices like meditation or journaling. How can you recognize the guardians in your own life story? They appear as the fears, doubts, and challenges that intensify right before major life transitions. They're the resistance that arises when you're about to leave your comfort zone. They're the recurring obstacles that seem designed specifically to test your resolve. When you notice these patterns, instead of seeing them as signs to retreat, you can recognize them as confirmation that you're approaching something significant. Take a moment to reflect on your current challenges. Which ones might be guardians testing your readiness for growth? What thresholds might they be protecting? The job application you keep putting off, the difficult conversation you've been avoiding, the creative project you can't bring yourself to start. These might all be guarded thresholds awaiting your crossing. Remember that these guardians serve as tests of our readiness and commitment, standing between us and new levels of awareness and personal growth. They're not there to stop you permanently, but to ensure you cross with full awareness of what you're leaving behind and what you're stepping into. They make certain the transformation is authentic rather than superficial. Have you noticed that within your deepest fears lies something extraordinary waiting to be discovered? The guardians we encounter at life's thresholds aren't just testing our commitment. They're actually holding something precious. Ancient wisdom understood a profound truth that modern psychology has only recently begun to articulate. Your monsters contain your gold. The relationship between what terrifies us and what transforms us follows a paradoxical pattern. Think of that project you keep postponing, that conversation you avoid, or that aspect of yourself you refuse to acknowledge. What if these aren't simply obstacles but doorways? The very qualities we run from often contain exactly what we need for our next evolution. This isn't poetic metaphor. It's a psychological mechanism that appears consistently in human development. When we encounter aspects of ourselves that feel threatening or uncomfortable, our instinct is to push them away. We project these disowned parts onto external threats, seeing in others what we cannot bear to see in ourselves. That colleague whose confidence irritates you might reflect abilities you've suppressed. The friend whose emotional sensitivity bothers you may mirror vulnerabilities you've learned to hide. These projections aren't random. They're precise indicators of qualities waiting to be reclaimed and integrated. Consider what happens in dreams. A man nearing 50 dreams of his son, portrayed as a knight, confronting a host of men dressed in black. Instead of fighting, the son removes his helmet and befriends their leader. This powerful image captures the essence of shadow integration. The youthful ego, the knight, doesn't battle what it fears, but instead recognizes and accepts it. The dream symbolizes the man's psychological journey, from conflict to acceptance, from fragmentation to wholeness. This pattern appears everywhere when you know where to look. Remember the last time you finally faced something that terrified you? Perhaps a public speaking engagement you dreaded, only to discover unexpected eloquence when you finally took the stage. Or the creative project you hesitated to begin, fearing inadequacy until you found a voice you never knew you possessed. These moments aren't coincidences. They're examples of the psychological principle that what we fear often contains what we need. The mechanism works like this. Qualities we've rejected or suppressed don't simply disappear. They go underground, forming what Jung called the shadow. These aspects continue to influence us from the unconscious, often sabotaging our conscious intentions until we acknowledge them. The longer we avoid integration, the more powerful and seemingly threatening these qualities become. Yet paradoxically, once faced directly, these same qualities often transform into sources of previously untapped potential. This psychological truth is mapped in countless cultural myths. Heroes who confront dragons don't just survive, they emerge transformed, frequently gaining powers directly related to what they feared. This isn't merely storytelling convention. It's psychological insight encoded in narrative. The treasures guarded by monsters symbolize the expanded consciousness and capabilities that become available through shadow integration. The hero's transformation represents the expanded self that emerges when we stop fighting against disowned aspects of our nature. What's particularly significant is how this process expands our consciousness. When we integrate previously rejected aspects of ourselves, we don't simply add new capabilities. We fundamentally transform our relationship with ourselves and the world. The expanded awareness that comes through genuine shadow work allows us to operate from a more complete understanding of human nature, including both its light and dark potentials. I recently worked with someone who had always suppressed her anger, believing it made her a bad person. Through careful exploration, she discovered that beneath this emotion lay an authentic capacity for healthy boundaries and self-advocacy. What had appeared as a threatening monster, her capacity for anger, actually contained the very treasure she needed: the ability to stand up for herself with clarity and conviction. The integration of this shadow aspect didn't make her more aggressive. It made her more whole. The same principle operates in creative blocks. Many artists describe facing intense resistance before breakthroughs. This isn't coincidental. The resistance often signals proximity to untapped creative potential. The qualities required for artistic evolution frequently reside in precisely the psychological territories we most fear exploring. The critic who paralyzes may actually house the discernment needed for excellence. The self-doubt that prevents completion might contain the necessary humility for genuine artistic growth. Understanding this mechanism offers a revolutionary approach to personal challenges. Instead of asking, "How can I overcome this obstacle?" we might ask, "What treasure is this guardian protecting? What part of myself am I being invited to reclaim?" This shift fundamentally transforms our relationship with difficulties. The very qualities that appear to block our path might contain exactly what we need to proceed. This insight invites us to consider, what qualities have you labeled as enemies that might actually be allies in disguise? What aspects of yourself have you rejected that might contain precisely what you need for your current challenges? The monsters you're fighting might not be obstacles to your journey, but essential components of your wholeness waiting to be integrated. The integration of shadow aspects isn't simply about gaining new abilities. It fundamentally expands consciousness and self-awareness. When we reclaim these disowned parts, we don't just access new capabilities, we experience a more complete and authentic sense of self. The expansion of consciousness that comes through this work allows us to navigate life with greater wisdom, compassion, and effectiveness. Your current struggles, viewed through this lens, take on new significance. The challenges that seem most persistent might be highlighting precisely the qualities you need to reclaim. The relationships that trigger you most intensely may be mirrors reflecting parts of yourself awaiting integration. The fears that feel most overwhelming might be doorways to your most significant evolution. What if that feeling of your life falling apart isn't random chaos, but rather a sacred process as old as humanity itself? Across diverse cultures spanning thousands of years, the pattern appears consistently. A symbolic death must precede meaningful rebirth, whether in ancient initiation rites or your current life transitions. This pattern of transformation isn't just a philosophical concept. It's embedded in our psychological makeup, appearing in initiation rituals from tribal societies to complex civilizations. These rites mark crucial life transitions, acting as bridges that carry us from one identity to the next. The fascinating consistency lies in how these rituals universally incorporate a symbolic death followed by rebirth, providing what psychologists call a rite of passage that helps us navigate profound change. Think about those pivotal moments in your own life. The transition from adolescence to adulthood, early maturity to middle age, or middle age to elderhood. Each of these thresholds activates what Henderson calls the archetype of initiation, creating an internal pressure for meaningful transition. In traditional societies, ecclesiastical rituals associated with birth, marriage, and death provided the framework for processing these shifts. They weren't mere ceremonies, but psychological technologies designed to help humans integrate the challenges inherent in transformation. The problem we face in modern society is striking. We've largely abandoned these formal initiation rites while still experiencing the same psychological demands for transformation. When major life changes arrive, whether through career upheaval, relationship dissolution, health crises, or identity questioning, we often lack both the understanding and community support that traditional rites once provided. We find ourselves in psychological territory that our ancestors navigated with guides, while we stumble through alone, wondering why everything feels so disorienting. Consider the metaphor of the caterpillar's metamorphosis into a butterfly, not just as a poetic image, but as a profound insight into the nature of transformation. Inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar doesn't simply grow wings. It undergoes complete dissolution. Its entire body breaks down into a cellular soup before reorganizing into an entirely new form with different capabilities, purpose, and identity. This dissolution isn't a failure of the caterpillar's existence. It's a necessary prerequisite for its evolution. Your psychological growth follows this same pattern. When you encounter those moments where your sense of self seems to dissolve, where your career identity crumbles, your relationship ends, your beliefs collapse, or your health transforms, you're not experiencing a breakdown, but a potential breakthrough. The psychological territories that feel most chaotic are often the precise locations where your next evolution is attempting to emerge. The transformation process typically unfolds in 3 distinct stages. First comes separation, where you detach from your previous identity or life situation. This might arrive as a layoff, diagnosis, breakup, or internal recognition that something fundamental must change. Next follows the liminal stage, that uncomfortable threshold experience where you're caught betwixt and between. You're no longer who you were, but haven't yet become who you'll be. This stage is marked by uncertainty, ambiguity, and often profound discomfort. The final stage, reintegration, occurs when you incorporate your new identity or understanding into a coherent sense of self and purpose. That feeling of being stuck or blocked before important life changes isn't random. It's a manifestation of liminality, that threshold space where old structures no longer apply and new ones haven't yet formed. When you recognize these feelings as natural parts of transformation rather than personal failings, you gain the ability to work with rather than against the process. Think about a significant transition in your own life. Perhaps you left a career that once defined you, ended a relationship that shaped your identity, moved to an entirely new place, or confronted a health challenge that transformed your priorities. The disorientation, grief, and uncertainty you experienced weren't signs that something was wrong. They were evidence that something important was happening. The dissolution of your former self was creating space for something new to emerge. This understanding doesn't make transformation painless, but it makes it meaningful. When you recognize the ancient pattern at work in your life, you can approach transitions with greater wisdom and patience. Instead of fighting against the dissolution of outdated identities or clinging to situations that no longer serve your growth, you can work with the natural rhythm of transformation. The challenge for many of us lies in navigating these transitions without the structured support that traditional societies provided. Without formal rites, we often try to skip the uncomfortable middle stage, that liminal space where genuine transformation occurs. We rush from one identity to the next without allowing for the necessary dissolution and reorganization that true growth requires. The result is often shallow change rather than profound transformation. The path forward isn't about recreating ancient rituals exactly as they were practiced. Instead, it involves recognizing when you're in a transformative cycle and creating intentional practices that honor each stage of the process. This might mean creating ceremonies to mark significant endings and beginnings, seeking community support during liminal periods, or developing personal practices that help you remain present during uncertainty. When you feel most lost, confused, or unmoored, ask yourself, what if this dissolution is necessary? What outdated identity might need to break down to allow for something more authentic to emerge? What values, beliefs, or aspects of yourself remain constant even as other elements transform? These questions help you navigate the transformation cycle with greater awareness and purpose. The challenges that appear during major life transitions often represent the exact qualities you need to develop for your next phase. The career change that terrifies you might be developing previously unused capabilities. The relationship ending might be creating space for deeper connections aligned with your authentic self. The health challenge might be redirecting your attention to aspects of life you've neglected. Beyond the visible struggles of transformation lies an invisible language your unconscious has been fluently speaking all along. While you've been focusing on surviving your challenges, your dreams have been painting elaborate symbolic landscapes. Your relationships have been enacting ancient patterns, and meaningful coincidences have been appearing with suspicious frequency. These aren't disconnected phenomena. They're chapters in your personal mythology waiting to be deciphered. Every night as you sleep, your mind crafts intricate stories filled with symbols that speak directly to your unique situation. These dreams aren't random neural firings, but purposeful communications from your unconscious mind. In Jungian psychology, dream interpretation is viewed as a crucial technique for unlocking the secrets of the unconscious, a realm that communicates through a symbolic language that predates words themselves. Think about that recurring dream you've had, the one where you're searching for something, where you're unprepared for an exam, or where you're flying. These aren't just curious, nighttime entertainments, but symbolic messages written in a code that your conscious mind may have forgotten how to read. Most people miss these signals entirely because they're looking for literal meanings in a symbolic realm. It's like trying to understand poetry by analyzing only the grammatical structure and ignoring the metaphors. When a snake appears in your dream, your first instinct might be to interpret it as a simple fear of reptiles, when it could be representing transformation, healing, or wisdom, meanings that snakes have carried in human consciousness for millennia. The language of your unconscious doesn't spell things out directly. It speaks through association, emotion, and imagery. The symbols that appear in your dreams don't exist in isolation. They form patterns that recur, not just in your nighttime visions, but throughout your waking life as well. Have you noticed how certain situations seem to repeat themselves despite your best efforts to avoid them? How specific types of people keep appearing in your life, triggering familiar emotional responses? These recurring patterns aren't coincidental. They're symbolic messages appearing in the text of your life, pointing toward deeper meanings and unresolved themes. Learning to recognize these personal symbols requires developing a new kind of attention. When working with a patient, an analyst meticulously observes recurring patterns within dream imagery over time, seeking to decipher their meaning. You can do this same work by keeping a dream journal, noting not just the content of your dreams, but the emotions they evoke. Over time, you'll begin to notice symbols that appear repeatedly: a specific color, an animal, a scenario, that carry special significance for you. These symbols may originate from the collective unconscious, that shared psychological inheritance of humanity, or they may stem from the unique tapestry of your personal experiences. The unconscious doesn't limit its communication to dreams alone. It speaks through the patterns in your relationships, the challenges that repeatedly arise in your life, and even through what Jung called synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seem too perfectly timed to be random chance. Have you ever thought of someone only to have them call moments later? Or repeatedly encountered the same unusual word or image in completely different contexts within a short period? These moments aren't just curious happenstances, but potentially meaningful signals from your unconscious. Identifying your personal symbols requires looking for what Jung's colleague Joseph Henderson called pattern recognition within personal narratives. The interpretation of recurring patterns hinges on a keen awareness of repetition, emotional intensity, and synchronicity. These elements serve as signposts, pointing toward deeper meanings that can be read like a complex text. When a certain symbol or situation evokes a strong emotional reaction, that's your psyche, highlighting its importance. When patterns repeat, despite your conscious efforts to change them, that's your unconscious trying to bring something important to your attention. One powerful technique for exploring these symbols is what Jung called active imagination, entering into a dialogue with the symbolic figures that populate your inner world. This isn't mere daydreaming, but a disciplined practice of engaging with your unconscious material. Start by focusing on a symbol from a recent dream or a recurring pattern in your life. Imagine this symbol as a living entity with which you can converse. Ask it questions about its purpose and meaning in your life. The answers might surprise you, revealing connections and insights your conscious mind couldn't access directly. Understanding the language of symbols is like learning a foreign language. It requires practice, patience, and immersion. At first, the meanings may seem obscure or confusing, but gradually patterns emerge and comprehension follows. The unconscious mind, a repository of ancient wisdom, preserves the innate capacity for symbol making, a faculty that once found its fullest expression in the myths and rituals of traditional societies. By reconnecting with this symbolic understanding, you're not learning something new, but remembering a way of knowing that humans have employed for thousands of years. You likely already have important symbolic messages waiting to be decoded. That recurring conflict with authority figures might be pointing toward unresolved issues with your own inner authority. That persistent dream of being unprepared might reveal feelings of inadequacy your conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. That strange coincidence that gave you chills might be highlighting a path forward you hadn't considered. By paying attention to repetition, emotional intensity, and synchronicities, you begin to see the hidden patterns that give your life deeper meaning. The hero myth, a recurring pattern in dreams and narratives across cultures, often appears in personal dreams as we develop our conscious sense of self. When you dream of confronting monsters or forces of darkness, this might reflect your ego's struggle with regressive tendencies or shadow aspects of your personality. If your dreams involve rescuing someone, this could symbolize the integration of disowned parts of your psyche that are essential for creativity and wholeness. By recognizing these archetypal patterns, you gain insight into your own psychological development. Those recurring struggles that make you feel stuck aren't random accidents or evidence of personal failure. They're signposts on your hero's path. Consider for a moment, what if the universe isn't conspiring against you, but actually orchestrating the exact challenges you need for your unique development? Look around at your life right now. That project at work that keeps you up at night. That relationship tension that never seems to resolve. That persistent fear you can't shake no matter how many times you change jobs or locations. What if these aren't just annoyances to overcome, but purposeful chapters in your personal mythology? The universal pattern of the hero's journey isn't reserved for mythical figures, battling monsters in ancient tales. It exists right here, in the ordinary moments of your daily existence. Each time you face a difficult conversation, encounter an unexpected setback, or struggle with internal resistance, you're experiencing a microcosm of the same transformative cycle that has guided human development for millennia. Most of us miss this pattern entirely. We interpret our struggles as random obstacles or personal shortcomings. We blame circumstances, other people, or ourselves when things get difficult. This failure to recognize the underlying pattern leads to a profound sense of victimhood, the feeling that life is happening to us rather than for us. We become passive characters in our own stories rather than active participants in our development. But what happens when you shift your perspective? That impossible deadline at work transforms from a source of anxiety into a threshold crossing, an opportunity to develop new skills, test your resilience, and prove your capabilities to yourself. That challenging relationship becomes not just a source of frustration, but a quest for deeper understanding and empathy. This reframing isn't merely positive thinking. It's recognizing the deeper psychological purpose behind life's challenges. Think about how this might apply to a specific area of your life. Perhaps you've noticed that despite changing jobs several times, you consistently encounter the same type of difficult colleague or manager. Or maybe, regardless of which city you move to, you find yourself recreating similar social dynamics. These aren't coincidences or bad luck. They're perfectly calibrated opportunities to develop particular aspects of your character. As Henderson describes in Ancient Myths and Modern Man, the essential function of the hero myth is the development of the individual's ego consciousness, his awareness of his own strengths and weaknesses, in a manner that will equip him for the arduous tasks with which life confronts him. Each challenge you face serves to cultivate specific aspects of your character and resilience, essential for navigating your unique journey of self-discovery. This perspective transforms even the most mundane struggles into meaningful parts of a larger, more significant story. The difficult project at work isn't just a source of stress, but a test of your skills, resilience, and ability to overcome adversity. The challenging relationship isn't just a burden, but an opportunity for growth and self-awareness. Consider how video games are structured. Each level presents obstacles specifically designed to develop the skills needed for future challenges. The game doesn't throw random difficulties at you. It carefully calibrates each challenge to build upon previously developed abilities while stretching you to develop new ones. Your life operates in much the same way, presenting challenges perfectly suited to your current level of development while pushing you towards your next evolution. The recurring challenges that seem to follow you throughout life, despite changing circumstances, can be understood through this lens. They aren't random or arbitrary. They represent perfectly tailored opportunities for growth and self-awareness. They're designed to develop specific aspects of character needed for your unique journey, much like a video game presents obstacles designed to develop needed skills. Take a moment to identify a challenge that has followed you through different phases of your life. Perhaps it's a tendency to avoid conflict, a pattern of abandoning projects before completion, or difficulty in establishing boundaries. What if this persistent challenge isn't evidence of personal failure, but actually an invitation to develop a crucial aspect of your character? What if it's not working against you, but for you? At each stage of the hero's cycle, there are specific forms of the hero story that apply to the particular point reached by the individual in the development of their ego consciousness and to the specific problem confronting them at a given moment. Your current struggle might be perfectly timed to help you develop exactly what you need for the next phase of your journey. This doesn't mean these challenges aren't painful or difficult. The hero's journey isn't about magical thinking that eliminates suffering. It's about finding meaning within that suffering. It's about recognizing that the most difficult experiences often contain the greatest opportunities for growth. The hero's symbolic death within the myth represents the achievement of maturity and a new level of understanding, a transformation that requires letting go of old patterns and embracing new ways of being. When you begin to view your life through this mythological lens, something remarkable happens. Instead of feeling victimized by circumstances, you become the protagonist in your own unfolding story. You develop what psychologists call agency, the sense that you have the power to influence your destiny, even amid challenges beyond your control. This shift in perspective doesn't eliminate difficulties, but it transforms how you experience and respond to them. Ask yourself, what would change if you viewed your current struggles not as random obstacles, but as meaningful chapters in your personal hero's journey? How would you approach that difficult conversation, that challenging project, or that persistent fear differently if you saw it as a crucial threshold on your path rather than an annoying detour? As we reach the end of our journey together, consider this profound truth. The walls that seem to block your path are actually doorways waiting to be opened. Your struggles aren't meaningless suffering, but invitations to discover the parts of yourself that remain hidden in shadow. The next time life presents you with what feels impossible, pause and shift your perspective. Ask yourself, what if this challenge isn't happening to me, but for me? What aspect of my true self is waiting to be revealed through this difficulty? You're not merely existing day to day. You're simultaneously the author, reader, and main character in an unfolding personal myth. Your life isn't just happening. It's speaking to you in the ancient language of symbols, constantly revealing its deeper meaning.